we're all waiting for Trump's arrest. I'm personally excitedly waiting. But the real question is, what the hell or heck? Am I allowed to say hell? I don't know. What's going on here? Right? Is Trump getting arrested? Are people protesting? You wanted them to take our nation back. Whatever that means. But let's find out. So here's an article from USA Today. Despite Trump's calls for protests, few efforts emerge as supporters worry it's a trap. Protest, take our nation back. We must save America. Protest, protest, protest. Quotes from Donald Trump. So ended two posts from former President Donald Trump, who had been posting incessantly, often in all caps, on his Truth Social page for the last few days. The messages have been flowing ever since Trump announced on Saturday that he believes he will be arrested in New York on Tuesday. Now again, it is Tuesday. Now it's possible that, let's say there's like a couple hour delay between my morning program and when I post this video. So it's possible that when I post this video as a separate clip, that Trump has already been arrested. Maybe. I don't know. If that's the case, feel free to leave me a comment. But I am of the belief that I will believe it when I see it. When I see Donald Trump in handcuffs, if I see Donald Trump's mugshot, then, and only then, will I believe he will be arrested. Until then, I think this is just a ploy to get attention. That's my opinion. But as of this moment, unless I'm very painfully wrong, I believe he has not been arrested yet. This is Tuesday morning, folks, as I'm recording this. But while the former president calls on his supporters to gather in protest at his prosecution, the message seems to be falling on deaf or at least unwilling ears. 3 days after Trump's desperate pleas, online support for public protest remains unfocused, disorganized, and muted, according to experts who monitor far-right extremists online. We've seen people, even giant Trump sycophants and dick suckers like Marjorie Taylor Greene, telling people not to protest. So interesting, right? Donald Trump seems to be being abandoned by all of his political allies, even those that have been the closest to him historically, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. When has Marjorie Taylor Greene really broken with Donald Trump? Can you think of another time? Well, I'm not sure. Rather than organizing protests, prominent Trump supporters online are instead driving a different narrative, that any public events are a trap set by law enforcement and that attending any events will be counterproductive and will likely result in protesters being arrested. Well, that a little bit of self-awareness is not, doesn't go unnoticed. So good job on the Trumpers for having a little bit of preservation instinct and not going, just balls to the wall like they did on January 6th and getting themselves killed. But hey, to be honest with you, I'd prefer they're all in jail. So, hey, go out there. It's a trap. It's not a trap. Who cares? The January 6th, 2021 riot at the Capitol, not necessarily a riot, more of an insurrection. You often see this in mainstream media. They love to do this like liberal whitewashing of Donald Trump's crimes. Not a riot. Well, you could call it a riot, but it's burying the lead. It was an insurrection. An insurrection. Riot is like, what happens after a Super Bowl doesn't go in the way that the home team city wants them to go. That's a riot. This was not really, it was kind of like a riot, but then more so, again, more notably an insurrection. So, don't know why mainstream media does that, but, whatever. Which was preceded by a call to action at a Trump rally, has led to nearly 1,000 prosecutions. That offers even the most ardent supporter tangible evidence that pro-Trump fervor can lead to jail time, even as some conspiracy theorists online continue to claim that the January 6th rioters were somehow framed. Again, insurrectionist would be a more appropriate title than rioter, but quote, we're seeing folks cautioning people about engaging in protests out of fear that it's a trap by the government, said Oren Siegel, vice president of the Anti-Defamation League Center on Extremism. Quote, we are also seeing some people urging people to protest despite the risk, with some calls for violence, but overall, there is no sort of cohesive movement in terms of where these protests should happen. Another thing I want to say is that you don't really need that many Trump supporters to cause a major disaster. Really, even a handful, like a half a dozen of these guys, depending on how severe that they are. Again, look at what was going on January 6th. One fella planted bombs at two buildings, the DNC and RNC buildings that are not in Congress, but, very close to the congressional building. One fella planted bombs there that were not found until the morning of January 6th. One person. We know that on January 6th, there were about 10 or so Oath Keeper, Proud Boy kind of guys, vans loaded with guns, that were waiting for a smoke signal to go in, guns blazing into the Capitol. And again, that smoke signal apparently never ended up happening. But again, it doesn't take that many of these guys to cause a serious problem for regular, normal human beings. So we got to be honest here. Will you protest? Many said no. It's a trap becomes a theme. No central focus for protests. The biggest fear, individual or small groups of extremists. So this is what I wanted to talk about. This is, I think, the most important aspect of this, is that we can, yes, is it funny if Donald Trump has a protest and only like 2 people show up? Yeah, it's funny. It's a funny meme on Twitter. You retweet, you post it on Facebook, you tell all your friends, look, only 3 people showed up to the Trump protest. But again, Donald Trump, right? He has animated a base of neo-Nazi extremists in this country, and some of these people are fucking nuts. So let's read this. Experts who monitor extremism caution that the biggest danger to public safety that could come out of Trump's escalating rhetoric probably doesn't involve large crowds of protesters. Far more concerning are small groups or individual domestic terrorists who might be inspired to take action by Trump's call for protest. They said it's happened before. After Trump made several fiery speeches about an invasion at the U.S.-Mexico border, a far-right extremist killed 23 people in an El Paso Walmart. After the FBI raided Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate and Trump railed online about the bureau, a man attacked the FBI's Cincinnati field office with a rifle, and another man was arrested for an armed standoff for threatening FBI agents on social media. With the Charlottesville rally and January 6th being obvious outliers, protests, even those held by far-right extremists, aren't usually where Americans are injured or killed by individual domestic terrorists. That usually happens in attacks driven by escalating political rhetoric, and that's what worries experts like Siegel. Quote, I am more concerned about a Nancy Pelosi husband-style attack, he said, referring to the October attack on Senator Pelosi. Senator Pelosi, I got news for the person who wrote this article. Not a senator, but okay. Senator Pelosi. House Speaker Pelosi's husband, Paul, by a man wielding a hammer. Quote, I am more concerned about a Pittsburgh or El Paso style attack than I am about an organized protest that leads to violence. So I agree with that part. And that to me is the highlight of this. But again, the more interesting aspects of this is that, again, online, you see even the most fervent political allies of Donald Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, telling people not to protest. Kevin McCarthy yesterday was like, if you ask Donald Trump, he'd tell you not to protest. What? I mean, so Donald Trump tells people to protest. Someone asked Kevin McCarthy about it. Kevin McCarthy is like, if you really asked him, he'd say don't do it. But he just said to do it. But anyway, still, who knows how this could go? Again, it's Tuesday morning as of this broadcast. Donald Trump, to my knowledge, is not arrested yet. Obviously, I'm willing to be corrected if there's some gap in information between, posting the clip of this and the stream here, or maybe someone can tell me. Maybe Trump was arrested 5 minutes ago and I just haven't seen it yet. But as of this moment, as of this moment, it doesn't seem like anything big, like a January 6th type situation, is going to occur. But that doesn't mean that nothing's going to happen. So everybody watch out if you're going to anywhere near where these things are happening in New York or whatever. Just be careful. As someone who is a former president may have said before, must be vigilant if you are in one of these areas. But anyway, there you go. That's an update on Donald Trump's, according to him, his imminent arrest, which, to my understanding, hasn't happened yet.